Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Thursday, August 22nd, 2019. Hey, gang, I've got a story here. I'm going to make this very quick. Got a story here, and this is authored by John Whitehead um, at the Rutherford Institute. And I'm not going to read any of it. I'm going to link it below. I'd like you guys to read some of this. Unfortunately, this is the kind of stuff where you can easily be branded as some kind of um, irritant, for YouTube and, for government or whatever. But I thought you guys would enjoy this. This is part of the waking up process, is really trying to understand how the government operates and what they want from you and me. What do they want? What is their purpose? What is the purpose of government? Now, had a completely different role if you want to go back in time to the America, that was founded by, everyone from Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, and many others, many others. But the purpose of government has changed. We have a more socialistic view of government, I think, than we had in the past, and I think that's very accurate. Socialism is now 100% accepted in the United States of America. And by the way, I will argue with anyone that we are a socialist nation here in the United States of America right now. This moment, we are socialist. Now, everyone's afraid that AOC and the Democratic Party, or the Tribe of Four, whatever they're called, um, will take us into socialism. Guys, we're already here. What they're talking about, what the Tribe of Four is trying to take us to, is communism. Just because they change the words doesn't mean the meanings change. We're already socialist. It's done. I can prove it. I have extensively proven it on this channel. So if you, and most of you guys know this, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but hopefully this will give you the ammunition you need to have this discussion with others. We are already socialist in the United States. It's done. We're socialists. We've been socialist for a very long time. All they've done is kind of change the definitions. We are not a democracy. We have not been a democracy ever, ever. The act of voting is the only thing that's seen as democratic in our form of government, and that's it. But voting doesn't work because everything's manipulated, especially since the electronic voting machines went in. That was the easiest way to manipulate the vote without the people knowing. Before, when it was fully ballots counted by hand, they used to have to move huge amounts of ballots, fake ballots from one place to another, to affect, a vote. Now they can just, go into a computer and literally alter the vote. It's that simple. So we are not a democracy. Number two, constitutional republic. Well, that means that we observe the Constitution, the founding documents, as the law of the land. And the republic means we elect people to represent us, to make sure that our rights are not taken from us. And we don't have any of that. We're not a constitutional republic. We were when we were formed. That's the kind of government we had, was a constitutional republic. The Constitution came before everything else. We don't have that anymore. We have socialism. We have socialism and fascism, or take your pick of words, corporatism, where corporations work with government, basically to get what they want, against the will of the people, against the desires of the people, against the best interests of the people. This is what we have. And the socialism is quite strong. Public schools, that is socialist. Whether you like it or not, public schools are a socialist system, and to make matters worse, they're largely controlled by the federal government. So how did that happen? The people pay for the public schools on a local level, but the federal government has control of them. Well, that's through teachers' unions. That's actually through curriculum, and international standards of operations. They wanted to, somehow regulate the schools so that they were all teaching at the same level. What they did is they dumbed down all the kids in the process. This is a fact. I know there's a lot of great teachers out there. I get it. But many of them that I know personally actually agree with me on this. They say that it's definitely different. If you go to the 70s and then you go to today, It's a huge difference. Huge difference. Well, what's changed? The Department of Education has been added as a cabinet level position within the executive branch. And that, unfortunately, added an entirely new dimension to the public schools that did not exist before, and it took away competition. So no longer are teachers, basically trying to be the best they can be. I mean, it's striving for mediocrity and submitting to a federal system, for education. Okay, let's go over that one now to Social Security. That's pure socialism. Example: I pay into Social Security, my entire life. I die before I can collect any of it. Does any of that money go to my next of kin? The answer is no. It goes to the greater good. It goes out to everyone else. Pure socialism. Pure socialism. I can bring up more examples if you like, but these are the easiest ones to bring up, the easiest to understand. But property taxes is another one. Property taxes is socialism. You don't own anything. The government owns. Actually, that's more of a tenet of communism, actually. So maybe we have a smattering of communism already existing within the system, and no one fights it. No one complains. Well, hang on. I don't want to say no one complains. I complain about this stuff, and I know others that complain about it, but we don't do anything to actually get it out of the system. I have literally gone to my county government to say, what can I do to get out of my property taxes? And he says, literally nothing. Nothing. There's nothing you can do. That's not exactly true. There are a couple of measures you can go to, but unfortunately they are extreme measures. One of which has become an American national as opposed to an American citizen. And we'll go into greater detail on that in a later date. Very difficult process. It does cost money, and it changes your life forever. But it is one way to get out of their system, because you can get out of income taxes that way too. Okay, but at any rate, I wanted to bring this story to your attention. I would like all of you to read it. Please comment down below and tell me what you think, but I am not inciting violence. I do not think violence is the way to go. Bloodshed is the last thing, is the absolute last thing that should ever be considered. Ever. We're not criminals, and we're not thugs, and we're not, bloodthirsty psychopaths like people in Washington, D.C. That is not what we do. That is not who we are. The best case scenario, to affect change on, for the, by the way, we're not Antifa. We're not going out and destroying private property so we can have our voices heard. I understand that some people feel that that is the only way to get attention. I get it, because government doesn't listen to anybody. However, there should be a giant movement within the United States for people to stop paying taxes. I mean, that would make a big difference right there. It actually would. I'm not kidding you. If we had, just to throw out a number, if we had 10 million people in the middle class, I don't know that there are 10 million in the middle class anymore. But if we had, let's just say 2 million in the middle class stop paying their taxes, that would be a massive blow to the federal government. It'd be huge. So this is, I mean, if you want government to start listening, they don't listen anymore. They just don't listen. They don't even pretend to listen. So this is an argument I have had with others before, a debate, that the government surely does not actually care anymore about your voice. And I have had personal experience with this. Personal. So I've talked directly to senators and representatives. They just don't care. It's that simple. Yeah, they may see someone like me calling up being a little bit too, quote unquote, radical for them. But I think on measures like, for instance, what I was calling about was not to do the bank bailouts. And the responses I got, in fact, I may end up doing a podcast on that and actually telling you guys my experiences calling up Roy Blunt's office. He was at the time my representative. Now he's my senator. Thank God he's retiring. But what my experience was calling his office. I did not talk to him directly, but I talked to his aide. And what his aide told me, when I was saying, I am saying no on the bank bailouts. Don't do it. I mean, it's just pure fascism. I mean, what happened in 2008, if you guys could see it for what it is, I mean, actually study it, it was pure corporatism, bailing out the banks. It never should have happened. Never. It I mean, the fact that politicians, they're supposed to be smart enough to understand when you're just literally shoveling out cash to the banks and then literally giving the bill to the taxpayers because the banks went gambling and lost and we covered their losses to the tune of trillions of dollars. You'd think that politicians would be able to go, this doesn't seem right. They sure didn't seem to fight it. There was enormous pressure for them to cave in on this, saying that the entire economy would collapse. Well, good. If the economy has to collapse for us to clear out malinvestment and get rid of the bad players, do it. Do it. Because this system is literally, ultimately, it is nothing more than a giant corrupt beast system. And it's stealing money from everyone in the United States, particularly from the middle class. The middle class will not survive this. And that's another video I need to do at some point in time. I want to talk to you guys about all the mechanisms that are used to make sure that the middle class does not survive in this next downturn. It is the writings on the wall, the middle class, and also the lower rich class, all the way up to people who make, I don't know, let's throw out a number. If you make less than $100 million a year, you got a giant target on you. They want everything. They want your Social Security money. They want, all of your income money. They want any investment money that you have. I mean, they're going for all of it, gang. You got to trust me on this. And I know this sounds alarmist, but it's absolutely true, and it's demonstrably true. However, these are the kinds of things that if you talk about, the government will call you a domestic terrorist. If you talk about what the government's plans are in real terms, then you are now a dissident, just by talking about what the government is doing. So this is why it's very, very difficult for a lot of people to bring up these stories and talk along these terms on YouTube or any other platform, actually, because you can get labeled a domestic terrorist just by literally announcing to everyone what the government is doing, what they're actually doing, not what they say they're doing. That is, the government lies constantly. What would be the point of just echoing what the government says through, the parrot, mockingbird media? What would be the point? The point of Truth, Money, and Freedom is to expose what the government does, in every regard. I mean, we tell the truth. We do our very best to discern the truth from the stories that are coming out. We do our best to try and predict what is coming based on news events and, PR pieces from government and even from banks. Because banks, remember now, when this system comes down, and it will come down at some point, remember now, this is extremely important to remember. The government is going to blame two people: immigrants and poor people. That's who they're going to blame. That is not the truth, though. The truth is it's being caused by banks, particularly our central bank, the Federal Reserve, all the big banks, the main six players, the big six banks, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, and such. But also, too, it's the politicians that actually, we can't have fascism without politicians and corporations joining together. So the politicians are to blame as well. So the banks and the politicians, captains of industry. This is, literally who caused this entire mess. Don't let them blame immigrants and poor people like they always do. That's what they did in 2008. Shoot, that's what they did in 2000. I mean, it's really ridiculous. And the mainstream media will echo this and echo this. And they'll keep saying, "Oh, it's all the people on welfare. There's too many people on welfare. We have too many immigrants coming into our nation." Well, the government is the one forcing the immigrants on us. And I'm not talking about just the Muslims coming in. Look at the wall that never got built, down below, but on the southern border region. But I'm starting to think that wall is to keep us in, to prevent us from leaving, because our government is changing into something horrifying. and people may want to leave the country when this transition is complete. If that wall gets built before that transition is complete, we might not be able to get out. When we feel we need to leave, because the government has gotten too big, it's gotten too authoritative, and they're actually now the giant police state, and they are now taking people's lives and their freedom from them if they don't agree with the government. This is what our government is leading. The United States government, I believe, is going to. But I believe a lot of European governments are going that way too. Um, okay, but I've talked enough. Please look at this article today. If you get a chance, read it, and if you have any comments, put them down below, and we'll be talking with you guys later. Thank you again for listening to Truth, Money, and Freedom. If you guys want, we have a Discord group. You can come and talk to us in there. You guys take care, and may God bless each and every one of you.